This morning, I'd like to talk about the two of us. Not the two of us, the two of you, I should say. Even though children are children, I believe it's important for them to understand that there are multiple versions of themselves. We all have multiple versions, right? Okay, we have the side of us that's like, I don't want to say it. Yeah, that one. Mediocre. That's the one that wants to wake up late every morning. We like to press the snooze button, right? We don't want to do extra reading on the weekend. We don't want to do a little extra math just so that we can, enhance our processing and comprehension of the skill. We just take the easy road. We just chill. We just cool. We just relax, right? So we have that side of us. But come on, we know that when it comes to succeeding in life, we got to make some adjustments, right? To avoid mediocrity and becoming a victim to the economic disparities that so many face, right? What's the other version? Well, we have another version. We have this successful side of ourselves. And that's the side that's like, let's go, right? We want to keep it moving. It's a side of us that's always saying, please don't press the snooze button again. But somehow the lazy side of us seems to win a lot of times. Right? Guilty. And so what we have to do, because I always say I don't mess around too much with adults, because adults were set in our way. We passed the point where we should have built. And now a lot of adults now are running all over the place trying to build because when they were younger, when they were supposed to build and plan and prepare, we were busy snoozing. Now, don't say, oh, that's not true. Some people work hard and still just end up being mediocre. I'm not going to buy that. I mean, I understand the whole concept when you shoot for the stars and maybe you hit something just below, but you don't necessarily become your worst self when you've worked hard and tried your best. And I mean, like real work hard, not just say it, I'm trying my best. Okay, we're talking about works and evidence. So I like to teach children early that there are two versions of them. I think that's important. And I don't just teach them one day and back off. I get them to understand that you're going to grow up, like it or not. Every year you're going to get older. And one day you're going to look in the mirror, you're going to have a mustache, or if it's a girl, yeah, whatever. You're just going to be grown up. So I teach them early to understand the concept that there are two versions of ourselves and that you're always going to feel a pull. One side of you is going to say, oh, let's go study. The other side's going to say, listen, just chill. Wait a minute. Let's finish this episode. And then the other episodes start and you're still sitting there and this little guy's like, or I should call this the best version, whatever, or the better version. It's like, come on, you said one more episode. Let's go. And this one's like, dude, what's your problem, man? Can you just relax? Look at all the stuff that we did last week. We did a lot of work last week. That counts for something. And somehow this version seems to win a lot of time, right? The mediocre side of us, it seems to win. The lazy side, it seems to win. Because why? It takes a lot of energy to keep up with this guy, right? And if you watch the videos, which we're all supposed to watch our overview videos, what happens most of the time here, this is just a reflection of entropy. And remember, entropy is the tendency for things to fall apart. And in the video, I know we talked about like a tree that sheds leaves and it makes your yard look so messy, and never, ever would you see the opposite occurrence where those leaves are coming up off the ground and reattaching to the tree, and you're like, oh my gosh, look how beautiful the floor looks now, right? Like if there's mud on the floor, and it's not just going to wipe itself up, right? So entropy is a tendency to fall apart. It happens to us as humans too, okay? That means because we'd rather just chill and relax. I mean, come on. Like I said, I'm guilty. I always tell my students, it's not that teachers want to work. It's not that we want to be here. We're here because we kind of had to speak to ourselves and tell ourselves, this little guy had to, beat him up a little bit and say, let's go. Okay. And teach them to do what they have to do so that one day they can do what they want to do. So it says the two of us, in order to succeed in life, we have to master the concept of the two us's, the two sides of ourselves. Because see, they're joined, they're connected, and one have to lead. You can't have the mediocre version and your best version leading at the same time. It does not work. One have to lead. Okay. More than likely because of the entropy concept, where it's easier to just relax and chill and fail. It's easier to fail. Yes. Okay. How do you pass a math test, a spelling test, a science test? This little guy ain't going to pass it. This little guy is going to say, I think the best way to pass is just to get it out of our minds, not to think about it. Just lay down in the bed and just, I don't know, just relax, just chill. Just think yourself passing the test, this guy says, right? And a lot of time, this wins because this is stronger. This self, it is stronger. Why? Why is it stronger? Because of, remember the concept that we talked about, the limbic system. Remember we talked about that? And that's the system that will always always influence us to choose what is easy and effortless and not challenging, because it wants to keep us in a state of comfort. Comfort never succeeds. You have to become uncomfortable, all right? That's when you know you're on the road for success. So in order for this guy to win, sometimes people get a little motivation and they're like, woo, they get so excited. And this guy starts to lead for a whole 20 minutes. And then motivation goes, because motivation is fleeting. It's beautiful when it comes, it gets us started, right? But after a few minutes or maybe after a day, you're like, okay, this guy's like, okay, now are you happy? You're running all over the place, acting like you're super somebody. Can we just chill? And then, you get tired. Motivation's gone. You're like, okay, you win. And then, because like I said, only one can lead. So this one takes the lead all over again. Okay. And then, when it comes to opportunities, this guy will cause us to miss out most of the time, right? Because this guy is not going to prepare. It's not going to prepare. It's not going to develop qualification or just enough. Okay. I knew somebody that used to always say, child, they doing the most. Why they doing the most? Okay. That just meant that why you over studying? Why you over preparing? Why you over planning? Okay. But, that person, I remember, really ended up struggling quite a bit in the end. So one have to lead. Is either the mediocre side of you is going to lead or the successful side of you going to lead. So when we talk about equal opportunity, you see, when you're a child and this side keeps winning, how does this side win as a child? When you go home and your parents watch the child, the parent watch the child sit on the couch and turn on the TV after school and watch episode after episode after episode until they're exhausted. They sit on the couch and they're eating chips and all sorts of unhealthy snacks and just, just every area of the life, just taking the easy road. What you're doing, parents, you're training the child how to function in their life as an adult. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. You think, oh, they're just 7, they're just 9, they're just 11. They're training. They're in a training camp, and it's going to cost them later. Parents, equal opportunity. What that means is that when this child is young, they have the same opportunity as anyone else. But see, when you're a child, let's look at our little chart here. Remember our developmental chart that's influenced by Erik Erikson and Jean Piaget. I remember they say that when that child is very young, they have this window of opportunity when they have the propensity to learn all sorts of stuff. I mean, they can learn multiple languages. When we get older, our brain's like a brick. But while they're young, they have, again, that window of opportunity where, they have all these available neurons, okay? And remember, we talked about the concept of apoptosis, where after a period of time when neurons are not used and when it seems like there's no function for them, they have no role, they're slotted off, okay? And only the neurons that develop meaning, that means that they're attributed to something. Those are the ones that will remain, okay? So while the child is very young, this is our chance to prepare them. You've got to trick them. You got to trick them and let them understand there's one version of you. And that's what I tell our students. There's only one version of you. This is it, the successful version. And if by chance you ever sense this, oh, that's the enemy. That's the enemy of you. That's the enemy of ourselves, right? When we feel entropy coming our way and we just want to, stop, we've got to push back, okay? You got to get them to embrace the idea you are a winner. And what do winners do? Winners don't do what this guy do. They don't. You're a winner. And you tell your kids that all the time, but then you allow them to practice and develop this. You got to, this part is the intruder. So there's only one side of me, and that's the successful side. If you see evidence of anything else, you got to get rid of it right away. But how do they get rid of it? You teach them successful skills. You teach them those strategies. Okay, don't depend on motivation because that only gets you started and then it leaves you high and dry. It drops you like a bad habit. All right. So equal opportunity when the children are young. Okay, if you allow them to get to secondary school and they're still very weak, that was the parents doing. Okay, remember, children are children. And as long as you attend to the child when they're younger, before they get to be adolescents where I'm scared of them. But if you develop the right habits when they are children, you will automatically create a child who won't have to succumb to mediocrity. They won't have to forfeit their dreams, and they won't have to take an alternative path where they have to sit and look up through that glass screen or that graph ceiling, I call it, looking at what could have been their best life. That's how people become bitter, miserable, because they know that the wrong version of themselves was fed. So think about your life as with the entropy. Think about that. You know that things are naturally going to fall apart. That's the way it goes. Okay? It takes effort to get up out of bed and take a shower and make your dinner. Okay? Anything that requires effort and work, we naturally want to resist it. Same thing with our brain. Our brain don't want to have to think about things. We just want things to happen. That's why fast food and fast everything and having those Alexas that'll just solve all our problems. That's why that's so popular. Okay. So one more thing I want to say. I want to say that, yeah, we get to choose the side that we develop. So certainly one side requires effort and work, and the other side, you just do nothing, just sit on your conveyor belt, and you will find yourself to your future one day where you will have access to one side of this tree. And I'm going to show it because I know not everybody saw the other video. Remember, we talked about the tree and how we have fruits on the tree. We all have the same tree. Rich people, poor people have the same tree, and we have the same fruits on our tree. The only issue is whether we have access to the fruits. How we have access to the fruit is the side that we developed when the time counted. So many adults now are trying to chase their dreams. They have children at home that needs attention, but now they realize, I was born to fulfill a purpose. And now they're like in this mad rush because listen, your purpose calls to you. Mm-hmm. Because you were created with a purpose that must be fulfilled in order for you to be fulfilled. Okay, so I'll finish my thought about equal opportunity. See, when you grow up practicing successful skills, then you don't end up in those situations where you're fighting for justice and equal opportunities, because you really become the person you were supposed to be, aligned with your ideal destiny. And your ideal destiny is not going to place you in a situation where you're fighting for promotion. It's not. Where you're having to fight for recognition. When you become your best self, you align with your purpose, and your purpose is connected to your creator. You're at peace. You're one. See, you're one. Okay. So I think that does it. We have equal opportunity. We have a chance. We have a choice to become our best self. And I'm tempted to say this last part, but a lot of times as adults, I meet with a lot of adults, and we want them to develop their children, and they always pull the money card. No matter how little it is, if it costs them something, they refuse to develop their children. And I say to myself, I say, if you cannot afford academic enrichment for your children now, and you're raising them the same way, don't you realize when they become adults, they too will not be able to provide enrichment for their children, and the cycle continues. And that is what keeps a person here. And that's what keeps a person from accessing the fruits on their tree. All right. So hopefully you'll jump on board. Okay. I want you to watch those 8 videos and continue to follow, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can learn how to become one with your purpose. And when you're one with your purpose, If you say that you're succeeding in life and you haven't fulfilled your purpose, you haven't. Sometimes people are in a career and they're getting paid really well, but they're miserable. You know why? Even if you're in a job that pays you 120,000 a year or more, if that's not your purpose, it's a matter of time. You're going to be feeling incomplete inside and miserable, and you're going to have to go searching again for your purpose. So let's help our kids to understand this concept. I'm Dr. Small with a stronger foundation, and we look forward to hearing from you, always having parent information sessions to educate the parent. You want to turn things around? You want to put our children at the top? Educate them. Give them a balance between mindset and education, and you will see a change that marvels your mind. Thank you so much for listening.